Right, welcome back to me weekly yarns. What have we been getting done this week? Well, started off Monday because the weather wasn't very good on Monday, so we decided we'd paint the bathroom, and it was like something that we've been planning for ages and ages, isn't it? It's one of them things you keep putting off because it's sunny today, so you'll get something else done instead. So that was 2 days out of our life this week. Just it's done now. Looking nice, clean and tidy. Smelling like Buckingham Palace there. All fresh paint. But never mind. So, what are we getting done with this week? Bits and pieces. Bits and pieces. You've seen a couple of videos that hopefully, if you've not, go back and have a look at these. One where we put the rear plate on the axle and the hydraulic pump in. And the other one where we did little bits and pieces on the rock shaft cover and bits and bobs like that. But nip back and have a look at them when you've watched this one. Like, wait till you've finished this one, then go back and have a look. So what else are we getting done? Remember the last time when we went to start the tractor and the negative lead didn't quite reach the battery, so we put a lighter gauge of lead on, and it got a bit warm, didn't it? So what I've done is ordered 27mm 170 amp cable, made up putting an end on it, soldered an end onto there. So all we're waiting for now is the battery clamps. I've got a pair of new battery clamps coming. We'll get the battery clamp put on, we'll get it down on the battery, and we'll spin this thing again then. So that was one of our little jobs. Another one of our little jobs in terms of starting. Again, if you remember on that video where I showed you the oil pressure, I'll put a little link in here for you. What I had to do was put a wire from the solenoid, and I had to just keep bending down, touching it on the battery. Well, I had a look on one of those famous websites, and the remote starter switches were between 25 and 50 quid for a switch and 2 bits of wire. So I went to my local car shop, 4 quid for a momentary switch, which is one that you only contacts while you push it and releases when you don't. 4 quid, 2 bits of wire out my drawer. The only thing I'd like to change about that is I maybe like to put on there one crocodile clip, so I could clip it to the battery. The other end spades onto the solenoid. That end I would love to clip to the battery. But that means I can be on this side of the engine, next to the fuel pump here, controlling the stops in the accelerator part of it. So, with that in mind, you know, we've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks, haven't we? About getting this rigged up and getting it ready to fire. Well, I was looking at the fittings we have here. I was going to put a milk bottle, a plastic milk bottle hanging here with some fittings on to go to here. And then you look at the price of the fittings, and at the minute the fittings are just crazy money. It was going to cost between 20 and 40 pound depending upon what you needed to get from the milk bottle down to here, and that was just a temporary measure. So had an executive meeting with myself. Didn't take any minutes with that one though, Ken. Just an executive meeting, give myself a good talking to. What I'm going to do, I'm going to bring the tank home. Because everything's in place here now. We're going to bring the tank home, we're going to pop the tank on here, put a couple of bolts in, pipe it up. We're going to put a couple of litres of diesel into the tank and fill the system. Get it up. It might as well. It's just because I know it's going to be the tank is big, but once this is fired and we're happy with it, then we will take the tank off again and it will go back to the farm into storage, because we just haven't got the space to have everything on in here. But we'll see how we get on with that one. And speaking of firing up, I've just been having a look on the porch diagram, right? Because down here on the side of the clutch cover, two little holes, one says top dead centre, the other, I cannot read it. What does that say? Let's have a look. That's CT? I think that may be CT. But that one's top dead centre. So I'm assuming that's top dead centre hole. This is the CT hole here. So it's pretty obvious, isn't it? TDC, top dead centre. The pin, part number 19. Well, not part number. It's item number 19 on the parts book. And it's part number 906963. And it's just a pin or a peg that goes through the TDC hole, but there is no corresponding hole in the flywheel anywhere. You've got the ring gear in there that the starter motor gets into. In front of the ring gear is a ring of holes, which is a drain for the flywheel in case any fluids or oils get into there and it throws it out. But there is no corresponding hole for that top dead centre peg here. And I remember when we took the flywheel off, we had a good look at it, and B, when the clutch went back on, I put this in and just to check that this TDC peg hole didn't line up with any one of those drain holes in particular, and it doesn't. If anybody out there knows what's going on with this, drop us a message in the comments, please. Let us know what this is all about, because as I say, I mean, you're used to having holes maybe in the front of the plate where you pop a screwdriver in and it gets into the hole inside and it gives you top dead centre 1 and top dead centre 2 and 3 and 4, but this doesn't, right? So if somebody can let me know, please. I don't know if it's got a different flywheel on. I don't know if it just hasn't been drilled, or whether you're supposed to set it up and you drill it. I don't know. I wouldn't have thought that we were supposed to drill it. I would imagine that this would have come from the factory pre-drilled, because they would have used this to set up their timing marks with. But anyway, like anybody out there that knows how this operates, please let me know. So you'll have seen the video of we reassembling the cover for the rock shaft with a latch pin in it. But when you look at it, you think there's something not right with that, with the way that cover stays in position when you turn the latch pin. It should come up with it. In my mind, I was going to put an O-ring on there, but David Monkhouse dropped us a little comment saying, and I remember this. I remember the second undercut on the pin, but he says it's for a circlip. You pop a circlip on there, circlip, cover, handle, circlip. Everything works together beautifully. So thank you very much, David. Comments always appreciated like that. Constructive criticism, constructive comments always appreciated on this channel from everyone. But so a little video coming up later on about that. Very short one. I was going to release it on its own, but I thought, nah, we'll keep it for the yarn. We'll whip it out on the end of the yarn and people can have a look at it. But as I say, anything like that, where a couple of minutes worth of work saves a couple of hours worth of grief, doesn't it? Because if in the future this tractor had gone back to work, a big potential there for the inner O-ring to have gotten damaged with dirt and muck and either let oil out or put dirt in. Either way, it's not good, is it? So, as I say, once again, big thank you to David. Thank you very much. Well, little jobs are getting done this week. Been bringing some more parts home. So we've got the oil filter bowl for under the gearbox here. Made up a gasket for it. Brought the screen home, popped the screen into the bottom of the filter. That's just about to go back on. We've got that popped back on. Again, hammers. Bloody, I shiver every time I think of hammers because it just cost me a fortune. But I use my proper little gasket hammer. I've got a nice little one for that, for getting underneath, getting into tight little places, hammering out gaskets. And it's funny, but I got on my back underneath there, put my mats on the floor, gets on my back underneath there, and I'm hammering the gasket out there. And you know how it goes through your mind, and you think to yourself, I hope them legs didn't collapse, because this could be the last thing I ever see is the bottom of this tractor coming straight down on my face in it. So, never mind. That's a job done, and that'll be lovely once it gets put into there, and it'll be a 5-minute job to pop that in, won't it? Get that sorted out. The ongoing saga of the valve chest. Again, you'll have seen on my videos that we'll pop a valve, empty, well, nearly empty valve chest into the back of the axle there to get the pipework at the right height to check for clearances, and everything's spot on with that now. I'm thinking of an idea to see if we can get that spool to move. The stuck spool, the lowering rate valve spool, is still stuck. What I'm going to do, I'm going to pop back up and see John up in Red Row this week. I'm going to take my 7/16 UNC bolt, 3-inch long. I'm going to ask him to drill a hole for me through the bolt, the whole length of it, 5mm. And I'm going to tap out the back of it as much as I can with the 6mm thread. I've got some 6mm grease nipples in here, and the plan is to put a little chamfer on the end of that bolt, so that when you screw it in, it mates up to the face on the valve chest where the needle valve fits in, which is the bottom of that lowering rate spool. We're then going to put a grease nipple in the back of it, and we're going to start and put grease down it under pressure. Hopefully that's going to start and push the spool back out. If I cannot get enough pressure on the grease gun to move it, then the plan with the 6mm thread is we can take the grease nipple out, we can use the funny little end of the grease gun to fill the cavity in the bolt with grease. We can then pop a 6mm bolt into the back of it where we can get spanners on and create more pressure. It's a thought, it's a process. I mean, this valve still has to go away to be rebuilt, because it has to be all cleaned out inside and the parts polished and honed and mated up again. And the clearance is set. So it still needs to go away to Barclay Williams to get reset. But I really want to send him a bag of bits and an empty valve chest. Just for my own satisfaction, I really want to get that spool out so that we can say we got it emptied and we got it sorted out. You never know. Watch this space. We'll keep us informed as to what happens with that. When we've been bringing parts home from the farm, parts that we had cleaned and prepped, and before I take parts back to the farm for storage, I oil the hell out of them. That hydraulic pump is a classic example. It was oiled to hell. It was wrapped up in a bit of paper, that was wrapped in a towel, and it was put on shelving in my little sheds across at the farm. Now there was the selector, the front and back faces of the selector for the hydraulic system. they all acquired very light rusting. And I've had to give them a scrub with some Scotch-Brite, and we've greased them up now. But I don't understand, when everything's oiled to hell, so that why should it be rusting? Just don't understand that at all. I know it gets quite humid in the shed at times, but everything's oiled to hell and it's wrapped up and protected. But obviously something's going on, but I don't know, because that selector valve, I unwrapped that back at the farm and I brought it back to here, and I'm convinced that wasn't rusty when I brought it back. But I've never had anything go like flash rust in the garage at all, ever. Never had it go rusty. So the only thing I can think of is that maybe with the light in the shed I didn't notice it with it being such a light coating. But now what I'm doing is I'm greasing the faces rather than oiling them. So you'll see a lot of it where the bare metal faces just get covered in grease, and they'll either get assembled like that or it'll just get wiped off. The excess will get took off, leaving a residue for to clean it, unless it's a mating face, in which case it'll get degreased, and then it'll get sealed up like our gasket faces for our plate where we well sealed them. I had a question through the week within a comment from John Moore, the guy who very kindly donated that clutch to her, and it was with regard to the clutch stop brake in the back of here. John has an earlier tractor than mine, and what John was saying, his has the friction pad type brake. This is your muff shaft. This connects your output shaft from your engine to your input shaft on the gearbox. You lift the circlips off the little brake drum that for the clutch stop brake, and you slide the brake drum as far forward as you can, sliding this in. Okay, then you pop your gearbox in behind it, and then you reconnect the two. And there's some shims that go in the back of here, between here and the gearbox, to set the distances that's required. So that's the muff shaft. It's got a machine area in the centre, and on this one you can, I don't know if you can see that there, but there's a very slight witness mark in the middle, about 2 fingers wide there, where friction pads have been rubbing on that one. Now, my tractor has, obviously you've seen it, my tractor's got the different type of clutch stop brake in it, as opposed to the friction pad type that this is for here. The friction pad was an earlier one. This was in the earlier tractors, and I'm not sure if this tractor has had, in some part of its life, a friction pad in it, but then it's been upgraded, or whether somebody's put this muff shaft in ages ago out of a different tractor with the friction pad in that other tractor. But if you remember, when I did say when I took the lid off this gearbox, all I had left of my clutch stop brake was the red casting, and even that was lying loose in the bottom of the gearbox. It wasn't anywhere near where it should have been, but there was absolutely nothing left. There wasn't any clutch stop brake system operating at all in this tractor when I took the lid off it. Hence probably why the gears within the gearbox are the shape that they are. Some of them is only about half the size, length on the teeth, only about half the size that they really should be. And it was, when I was talking to Colin Stewart up in Aberdeenshire, it was actually cheaper and easier to buy a replacement box than what it would have been for to try and buy spares to put my box right. So as I say, hence there's a spare box sitting at the farm which will be going in here at some point fairly soon. And the reason that's the gearbox has to go in before the PTO cover can go on, because the cardan shaft, the PTO drive shaft, has got to come in from the back and through the gearbox and through this output shaft for the drive plates. And you can obviously kind of do that with a PTO cover on. So we're getting to that stage where I think we're seriously thinking about, and that's what the whole drive of the oil filter and the oil bowl is. I think our next job will be to have an inspection of that gearbox, see what needs doing to it, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that nothing needs doing to it, because the bearings are an absolute fortune for that thing. But we will have a look at it, and if it's workable, it will get put in. If it isn't workable, it will get took to bits and refurbished and then put back in. So we'll see. We'll see. So a couple of other little jobs, and just little jobs. We're getting like the covers put back on the dust covers put back on the top of the clutch cover. We've got the cover that goes into the bottom of the clutch housing. Goes in that way, doesn't it? Goes in that way. Now, I've offered this up this morning because I was looking for some nuts. I've made some bolts because I couldn't find the bolts to keep this in, so I've just cut a couple up. That goes in that way. This is internal. I thought it was external. It was external when I took it off, because all the rubbish was lying in there, but it was external when I took it off. But then when you look at it, you think the bend that's on that, it's quite obvious that it has to be internal, isn't it? So I checked on the parts diagram and it surely is internal. But the little bit problem that I have is this fits nicely. That's the front, so this fits nicely into the front of the gearbox. This piece here, there's about 3/16 of an inch gap between here and the casting, almost as if it needs a bigger item. I might actually have a look and see if I can just make a plate with some louvers in and replace that so that it covers the whole of that area, and not, as I say, the front of this is all open quite considerably. We'll see. These lights, the two lights that I put up here, these were starting to appear a bit harsh on the lighting situation in here. So what I've done is I've put a couple of diffusers on them to soften it, but I've also ordered two more of these. These are 30 watt 12 volt LEDs that run off car batteries. So I've ordered two more. I'm going to pop them in here. Now what I'm going to do as well, I'm going to install a switch up here to switch these four off, so that if I'm only working on my bench up there and I don't need the lights on down here in the winter, I can turn these off and work off my two little lights that's up there. Just save it, get a bit longer out of my batteries, because in the winter they're not going to charge up very fast, are they? Not in Northumberland anyway. Not many good sunny, shiny days in Northumberland in the winter. I think this is in the wrong place this week. I don't think it needs to be further over that way. I think I might have a couple of inches at the front. I was busy with it the other day. I think it was when I had to move it forward so I could get at the back to put that selector in without emptying the garage, because it was night time and I didn't want to empty the garage. So I had to move it forward, and I don't think I've put it back properly over the other side, so it needs to get shuggied over a touch out the way. Because believe it or not, 2 inches of room in here is an awful lot. So I cannot afford to have it leaning this way. Quick one. I've ordered a 4-inch G clamp. Nice powerful one with a cast body. And the reason is the rivets on the brake shoes. I've been looking for a tool. To shape the rivets in there. There's a place that refurbishes Austin Healey's has a one, punch, for 18 quid plus VAT plus postage, so I'll probably look in the best part of 25, 27 quid for that. I have been reading and watching a lot of things on YouTube about setting brakes, and a lot of people are saying if you use the hammer style punch on these things, I'm going to put this down, you are at risk of over tensioning the rivets, which can cause the braking material to crack or fracture. Or the other alternative is you don't tension them enough and the friction material stays loose on the shoe. And in the comments somebody mentioned get a G-clamp, knock the swivel pad off the end of the screw so you're left with the ball, and use that. Use it as a compression tool so that you can turn the ball in, which will flare the rivet over. And what you do is you pop your clamp in a vise over the top, put your shoe and your material into it with a spacer for the rivet head to keep the rivet head pushed in. Tighten it down but keep swiveling the shoe. When the rivet expands and grips the hole, you'll feel it. You'll feel this all tighten up, and that's the point at which it's right. You don't want to over tighten it. You don't want to over tighten it, because over tightening this here can fracture the material, and you don't want to be doing that. Conversely, you don't want to be leaving it loose either, so that it's sliding back and forward inside your brake drum. So that's what I've done. I've ordered a nice brand new 4-inch G-clamp, and we'll either try it with just the wing nut that's on the back of the G-clamp screw, or we'll weld a bolt, or we'll weld a nut onto it, or we can get a spanner or a socket onto it and get a bit of friction gunning on there. Right, well, we're going to have a revisit to this, because when we put this together, we'll put a circlip on there. This is a dirt excluder, and when I put this together and you turn the handle, the dirt excluder stays down here. And it was in my head, well, what's the point of a dirt excluder? It stays down at the bottom. It needs to rise as you turn the handle. This was exposing the shaft, right? And I was lying in bed last night thinking about this, and I got up this morning, came in the garage, and I'm having a look and I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to whip that circlip off, whip the handle off, whip the dirt excluder off. I'm going to put an O-ring in there, tight O-ring, to grip the shaft, and it'll pull the dirt excluder up. And lo and behold, goes back into the house, turns the computer on, looked at me messages, looked at me comments on my channel. There's a comment there from David. Been a while since David's had a comment, but he always comes up with a gem. And he mentioned, he says, if you look at the shaft, there's a second undercut on it for a second circlip that goes underneath the dust excluder. So you circlip, dust excluder, handle, circlip. And he come back with that to me, and it's wonderful, because I just love it when people do that. When you come back with little snippets of information like that. So I quickly looked at the parts diagram. Again, I've got a parts diagram with Explorer View. There is nothing on that parts diagram that I've got, and I'll put a picture in for you. There's nothing on there mentions a second circlip or second O-ring or anything to keep that dust excluder in position. But as I say, it's been on my mind for a little while, and obviously David saw the video we put out yesterday and immediately came back in touch and said you need the second circlip in there to get that to work. So we're going to whip the top off this, we're going to put a second circlip in, and we're going to have it working properly. Back in a minute. Right.
Bloody lovely.
Right, that's it done, isn't it? Look, when you turn it now, the dirt excluder comes up with the handle, which is exactly what is supposed to happen to protect the shaft. Stop the crap getting on the shaft, and when you loosen it, stops it being driven inside into the oil. So, this is exactly what I'm on about, guys. If you see something like David Monkhouse did there, if you see something that in the future is going to save an awful lot of heartache and grief for 2 minutes worth of work now, don't be frightened to pop a line in the comments. I don't care, just pop a line in the comments like Shane did. Shane Bush from America. He watched the video of this putting it together, and he dropped a message which said he wished his had been as easy as that to put together. But I remember, before I put mine together, I remember Shane ages ago in a previous video, Shane dropped a comment that was like he had a right ball ache getting that circlip on. And I thought to myself, right, he's had problems with that, and you can see why. You can see why he's had problems with it. And I thought to myself, right, if I put a bar of steel in my vise and I rest the latch pin on the bar of steel, it kind of disappear as you're trying to put the clip on. And luckily Deb was here and gives a hand to do it. She did it again, as you've seen today. She's been there today to give us a hand, pop everything back together. But it's the little comments like that, the little snippets of information that do help everybody out here, right? Just because you've got this little snippet of information, or you've got a niggle in the back of your mind thinking, have you done this, have you done that, is this in place? Drop it in the comments. And then if you're right, you're right. You know what I mean? That's the way life is. That was brilliant with David for that, for the way David Monkhouse, for that second circlip. I was going to put an O-ring in. Circlip's even better, isn't it? So, thanks very much, David. Save a bit of grief later on, mate. Thank you. Well, that's it for this week, Leon. Thanks very much for visiting. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope we found snippets of information useful in it. As I say, if anybody can answer any of my questions, like the top dead centre pin here, drop us a comment, please. Leave us a message. All comments and constructive criticism are greatly received. Remember I was mentioning about the cover about Shane with the circlip? Well, that saved me a lot of grief. David Monkhouse, again, the second circlip. Yeah, it all helps each other out to make sure we get the jobs done properly in the end. Right, well, thank you very much for visiting. We'll see you during the week, hopefully, with our tank on, if our battery connections come. We'll get our tank on, get it piped up, get this flooded with fuel, and we'll see if we kind of get it fired up this week. So, thank you very much for visiting. If you found it useful, please like and subscribe. It does help the channel out tremendously. Costs you guys nothing. And apparently, the more likes that the videos get, the more they're promoted out there within the YouTube world, so the more people can possibly get to see them on that homepage when they open your homepage up. So, thank you very much, guys. Remember, don't overthink it. It's just nuts and bolts. And we'll see you in the next one. Stay safe. Bye now.